Archer, I'm trying to film. You didn't care, do you? He doesn't care. Nope, he's gonna have to deal with that. What's up, Rockstars? Today I'm bringing you another Kickstarter video, but this one is specifically about Bardsung, and the reason is because I've played it, and I've talked to the designers, and I want to tell you all about it. So let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. As always, I'd like to start out with a quick thank you to my YouTube members and patrons. It is through their financial support that much of this is possible, including my unbridled opinion. None of it is in any way related to these companies paying me money. It is not my wallet speaking, it is my honest opinion speaking. So thank you so much for providing an opportunity and an avenue to be independent. I greatly appreciate it, and it benefits every one of you. So I'm glad that that happens. If you want to join them, there is a link down in the description below. But if you can't, that's fine too, I understand. There's a Amazon link you can use. Just whenever you're shopping on Amazon, I get a little bit of kickback from that. There's obviously just a like and a subscribe, a comment, all that kind of stuff really does help, and I greatly appreciate it. Now, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and actually jump into it. We're going to discuss it right now. Alright, now I want to do things a little bit differently this time, mainly because I don't have a lot of the images I would need to typically kind of go over it, and because this is kind of last minute. I literally just played this today, and so I kind of worked on gathering my thoughts and what I would say and what I would talk about, the highlights that I found, and then, obviously I'll talk more about this in a dedicated video again when I actually upload the play session that I had with them and my interview with them. So I was able to ask them some questions. They were more than, glad to provide in-depth feedback to that and responses. And so it's really useful to see kind of where they're coming from. And I talk about a lot of the meta stuff you don't always get, about the IP and designing a game and then the IP and which one comes first and how they kind of mooch off of each other, and just kind of general stuff like that is really cool. And then of course we have kind of a session afterwards where we talk too. So it's really good. That'll be coming up later, probably next week. So kind of be on the lookout for that. It'll kind of be leading into that final December stuff where I do all the end of year stuff. This is just going to be me viewing the Kickstarter trailer, and then I'll give you some insights into it that you probably, hopefully, will get on the webpage, which again will be linked down below because this is live on Kickstarter at the time of publishing this. But if not, that's fine too. Either way, I'll give you that insight here. So you'll get it here anyway. All right, so we're going to go ahead and play it, and then I'm going to play it and then talk about it afterwards, and we'll kind of break it down. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and break this down, and then as we kind of go through it, I'll talk about just my insights into this now that I have some insights. So we're going to start out, I guess right here, it says inspire the songs. Okay, let me go and put this on mute so it's not playing. So that is kind of a play, even on the other one with the Bardsung. Essentially, kind of like when you play Oathsworn, or if you saw Oathsworn, you are an Oathsworn, and that title means something, right? It means that you are a certain kind of person. And what this is the same kind of thing, where becoming a Bardsung, it means essentially that you are like legendary status, right? Like what you did as a hero was legendary. Now, whether or not you live to see the end of it or not is, kind of up to you to find out in the campaign. But, so you don't know where, you know that that's going to be this epic thing. But you don't necessarily know how it's going to end because the bard's kind of singing it. And actually, and this was kind of cool, they flip the perspective or the tense, right? And so in the narrative part of it, it's actually kind of like the bard singing the tale of this legend, right? And so it's all past tense. And then when you actually dive into it, it's present tense. And so it's like zooming in on that and being like, and here's how it played out. And it's your custom thing. I'll talk a bit more about how that's your custom thing in a bit. But that's kind of, I think, a neat narrative idea that, the narrative part is past tense. So, this has already happened and this bard is singing your song, essentially. You are a Bardsung. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's all happy and, it ends well for you, right? I mean, that's kind of how these things work. So I thought that was really kind of a cool idea, that they're going to be doing. Be a hero. Yes, the same thing. You are a hero, and obviously there's bad guys as well. And so you can become Bardsung. I mean, obviously you are, but you're following the journey of how you became Bardsung. Okay, setup in minutes. This is kind of interesting. So, this is from a multitude of things. And I'll probably be paused here for a little bit because I'm going to be talking about a very unique kind of narrative deck building and then how you lay out the dungeon itself. So, first of all, when you're exploring, you take a card for like a room, and you take a card for a corridor. If you're in a corridor, you take a card for a room. If you're in a room, you take a card for a corridor. So it kind of makes an obvious kind of natural dungeon kind of layout. And those cards that you're drawing are dependent on many different things, like the scenario. Let's say you're, doing like kind of going through kind of a cave-like area with spider webs everywhere, and you're fighting spider, enemies more often. So that's going to be in that deck. But let's say that you made a decision, a narrative decision, in the last mission, and it told you to add a card. And so you add a card into there, and now suddenly that card might pop up, and that's kind of a resolution or the next step of that decision that you made. Or perhaps you removed a card, or, perhaps it gave you a hint about another card. So I'm not going to even give the hint out. The hint's going to be in my next video, to kind of give an example that it's kind of like a little riddle thing. It kind of reminded me a lot of Arena or Tenaris Adventures, where they have those kind of riddles where it's like, if you're reading between the lines, you kind of figure out what it's saying. You're like, aha, okay, I can go do that. But otherwise it might just be like, okay, all right, whatever. It just kind of depends on how far you want to read into it. But either way, you're kind of always saving your game if you think about it, because the deck, your current deck, is your saved game. That's all your decisions. That's all, where you're at in the story and all that. In fact, when you open up the box, it's going to have the tutorial set up in there. So you just take that and you start using the deck, and that builds you into the story, and then you just keep going from there. And so it's kind of this genius way where instead of having a table where you mark, C1, yeah, because I killed that guy, and then, I explored that area, so that's, D19 there. And then you look at the storybook, and it's like, if you have D19, check to do that. Instead, it's just like, hey, you're going to slot that card in your deck. And so you constantly get this customized story deck almost that's kind of always there. So the setup is really easy because you just start on the starting tile, and then you're just going to be drawing these cards anyway. So you don't have to set up the whole map. It's explored as you do that. You customize the map. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but your deck's already there. You don't have to, remember, these enemies and this and that. It's all just kind of streamlined, which is actually, I think, really cool. Okay, so we're going to keep going on. Let's see, what's the next point? Explore into the unknown. So this is exactly what I was talking about. Okay, so right here, I want to pause right here. This is perfect. I'll go with the build unique dungeons as you go. Okay, so that starting tile is that starting tile on the left, and then you just essentially have to get to the other side of the map. Now you can go short ways, you can go long ways, or you can even go diagonal. And in fact, you're kind of given a choice on how you navigate into it. So you start out, and you're obviously going to place a tile there. But as you can see, this first tile that they did went over 2 areas. Not only there was dead ends there, but they could have gone this way. They could have gone here. Additionally, you'll see these kind of Bardsung, these like little symbols musical kind of symbols that they have. You can actually have cards there that are like special places of interest or treasure or something like that, but you don't have to go visit them. Again, if you are just wanting to quickly get through this, you could try and beeline it all the way to the end and just kind of go as straight as possible. Now, again, things can happen. An earthquake can happen and, block off your path if you rolled badly, or, an enemy, you draw the tile and then you can place it however you wish, but you have to place the tile. And so you can make it kind of go straight, but maybe sometimes it's constant corners and you're having to zigzag. It is kind of a little random in that sense, which also means that each play obviously will be unique as well, not including all the other cards you're dealing with that, but just the map layout you do. And so again, you could try and go just short ways, you can go long ways, you can go diagonal, and then even within that, you can decide how you meander around through it. Maybe you want to kind of beeline it a little bit, but then you feel a little confident, and then you can kind of zigzag. There is something to keep in mind, and they didn't show it in this one, but there are roaming monsters. And so as you're going through this, you're going to be making noise, and you might get the curiosity of a roaming monster. So you're going to roll, and if the roaming monster comes in, they're going to come in through the entrance, and then they're just going to pursue you. And so you're going to want to maybe go a little bit slow and close doors, kind of, navigate them and take them longer to get to you. Or perhaps, again, you're just running and gunning and hoping that you can stay one step ahead of them. But, additionally, the roaming monster, when it comes in as a blip, so you don't know what it is. Something's coming, but you don't know what. And so, maybe you're a little overconfident, maybe you're not. You're going to constantly kind of decide how long you kind of stay in this dungeon in each scenario, which is kind of cool. And it adds that little point of maybe we stayed a little too long, right? Maybe we shouldn't have gone to this lower right-hand corner to get that, point of interest and see what that card was. Because now this roaming monster is on our tail and we don't know what it is. And oh my gosh, that's this giant dude, so there's that kind of thing as well, which is, I think, pretty cool. But that's kind of what they're saying here, is each playthrough even then is going to be kind of unique. Okay, so create your hero. This is a little bit involved, so I'll explain this a little bit. Leveling up is as streamlined or as nuanced as you want. And so the streamlined way, obviously, is you just kind of up your stats as you go, and you have, like, let's say if you're the warrior. Now, I'm using common terms. They're going to have a fancy IP-ridden kind of term of, oh, the warriors are called this, right? But let's say you're a warrior. All right, so you can see here, like, this is Night Feather. They have starting abilities and equipment, but they can keep going in that, and they'll have kind of their set deck. That's kind of like their special abilities and stuff like that. And then you can see that in this upgrade, kind of, your abilities here. So your dexterity can go up, or your wisdom can go up, or whatever. And as you can see, each character kind of has a different, a different way of leveling up, right? So he can be up to 4 dexterity, but maybe the slow trudging tank can't go up that high. And so their dexterity is going to be a max of 1. Who knows? This is kind of whatever. So your character class obviously matters, but you're not limited to that. There is some cross, class, taking on, which they're going to talk about in a little bit. So I won't talk, well, I guess I'll talk about it now. That's fine. Essentially, you can take abilities from other classes as well and kind of customize that a little bit and just accent what you do. So, for instance, it showed a leap before, and I'll probably call back to this in a little bit. But you could, a lot of times you can have that on like the elf, and the elf just can get away from people, right? It can leap out. But you might want to put that on your warrior, so your little warrior can now leap into battle, and that's fundamentally different than somebody who didn't have that, and it's kind of the slow trudging warrior. So you can kind of customize that. But again, there's a lot of options. So you can add special abilities, and those abilities can be from your class or perhaps even another class. You can enhance your innate stats. You can enhance your current stats. And so let's see if it goes down a little bit. Okay, so right here, you see this hit down here. That can be upgraded. So you get a plus to your hit when using Quick Slash, for instance, or maybe Piercing Strike. So you can kind of upgrade your abilities as well and like level them up, so you can have a level 2 version of it kind of thing. And then additionally, you can upgrade, and it shows this as well, your weapons and gear and stuff as well. So there's kind of 3 different ways you can upgrade, just kind of depending. And also, if you notice, each one of these heroes has a special thing here. That generate 1, that is a fate. And so when you start the game, you're literally like casting out the fate, you kind of just throw them out like they would be dice. You're casting it into the wind is kind of how it's described. And they'll be either, flipped up or down, and you can use that fate to kind of do special things, and each character can generate it kind of in a special way too. So you're constantly generating fate and then using fate. And sometimes you can combo that up, and have somebody generate something, then you can use it and kind of do something special. So and this is where the multi-class, the hero your way too. So you have a lot of options that you can do that maybe you can normally do. And again, there's more upgrades there as well. Playing, solo was fine, and then 5 people, I think that's cool too. I know a lot of games try to sell you that 5th player expansion, and so it's nice to be able to do the 5th player. Okay, combos. Oh man, too far. Let's go back a little bit. Okay, so, this is a weird example of a combo because for the most part, you wouldn't have to worry about that. So what he's doing is pushing him in so then the other person can attack him. That's because that guy's really weak. He's going to die in one, kind of major wound anyway. But, it's not just line of sight and stuff like that too. Like, for instance, I had a person kind of buff because I was coming next and going to act next, buff my attack so I could roll 2 dice and then pick which one I wanted. Because we had a whole bunch of guys in our zone and we needed to make sure to get rid of them, and I was acting before the enemies were, so if I killed more, then that's good. And so I combined that with an ability to where if I damage one person, I assign a damage to another person. Which in this case was just kind of 2 weak guys, so they both died. But I could have attacked the weak person if there was a tough person there, and then still assign the damage to the tough person. So it would be an easier way to damage that tough person. Stuff like that is kind of always in there where you can interact with more. Again, maybe you need to generate the fate so another person can use it. Stuff like that. Very co-op driven. This is probably the highlight of the game for me. So essentially you have like this battle flow area up here, and this is the order of which people are going to act from left to right. It's random at each round. So each round you take all your cards and you shuffle them up and then you deal them out, and it's random, right? Maybe the enemies are attacking first. Maybe it's the tank first. Maybe it's the healer first. Who knows, right? Well, instead of just kind of randomizing the flow and having it do that, they included a lot of game mechanics into it. And what I mean by that is, for instance, one of the characters might be able to, hold the first position. And so they have an ability to where they can force themselves to be first. Which means obviously enemies want to attack first. They've taken that first spot. It might mean that, that's an easier time for the tank to deal with stuff or whatever. Maybe it's your damage dealer and you can kill people before. There's others that might be able to leap, up, and you kind of saw them do that, right? Where like Nightfeather can actually leap up, I think 2 spaces or something like that. So, you can kind of move around within that battlefield too. And that's actually more important because, and they didn't show this at all, but this has boss battles too. And the boss battles are interesting because they'll use this a lot, which I think is again, very, very cool and not something I'd really heard of before. So, for instance, let's say that the boss is like shaking the whole arena that you're in. And so there's, pieces of ceiling falling down. Well, if that's the case, it doesn't matter where you are in the dungeon. It might be the closest person, might be the farthest person, might be both. Instead, what it actually is going to say is, let's say if this brigand was the boss, then it would attack the person on the left and the right, whoever that happened to be. So the Light Reaver, and then, whatever other hero was over here. And so, if you know that going in, or if you learn that, oh man, that's an attack you can do, you're going to want to make sure that you move people around there, especially depending on how it's drawn, to kind of mitigate that and maybe make sure that the healer doesn't get hit. It's the tank. And if that means that Nightfeather needs to move up one, then so be it, and stuff like that. So you can kind of try and mitigate stuff that way. Additionally, you can actually have, attacks feed into this. So let's say you're fighting a boss and they have 3 main attacks. They have like a whirlwind and a leap attack and, an area of effect kind of, or let's just do a defense breaking single attack, right? Because a whirlwind's kind of area attack, whatever it might be. And so those cards will actually be in here, and when those get there, you resolve them. And so, he's going to do a whirlwind, and then he's going to do this, and he's going to do that. And so not only is it kind of cool, because it's kind of like taking a boss battle or AI deck, flipping it up so you can see what's going to happen, and then having to try and like strategize around it. But it creates a little bit more, there's still reactionary strategy because you were randomly dealt the order, but it's still a little bit more concrete strategy because you know what's coming up. But you still have a lot of decisions to make. So let's say you can flip the card from a level 1 to level 2. And when you deal damage to him, it actually flips that to a level 2. You get to pick which one you do to level 2. So suddenly it's going to be harder. But once you flip all 3 to level 2, one of them's removed. And so you can get rid of that stupid whirlwind because that's kicking your butt. But you had to upgrade all those and then go back to level 1 and then you have to flip them to level 2 again and then get rid of another one. And perhaps that's how you defeat the bosses that way. Or perhaps a boss reacts by actually getting stronger, not weaker. And so that when you flip over the other one, it's like, oh, hey, add this new attack. Oh, crap, now we have to deal with this new attack that we didn't even know about before. But now that we flipped that card, it says to do this. And so now he's actually gaining more attacks or changing his tactics as you fight. It's a great and kind of really smart way, I think, to, again, really streamline the boss battler premise of a boss that's changing tactics based off of what you're doing, and you kind of deciding to attack in certain ways and in a certain order to kind of deal with their moveset. It's done a lot in boss battlers in a much heavier way, and so having it just kind of be these cards that you're kind of interacting with, I think is actually a very unique and interesting perspective on that. I think that's pretty cool. Combat, by the way, when you're dealing with combat, is like, I mean, it's quick. You could resolve an entire enemy turn in like a minute. You really could. It's very swift, which is one of my preferred things. Yeah, stuff can happen, obviously, right? You're, when you draw, any kind of card, it'll tell you if there are doors, it'll tell you if there are enemies, it'll tell you if there's an event that happens, and one of them might be an earthquake. Oh crap, an earthquake happened, I have to deal with that. And so you don't know, so you're kind of exploring and you kind of want to stick together a little bit, but at the same time, you're kind of dealing with these different things, and sometimes bad things can certainly happen. Another thing I guess to note, if I go back a little bit, here is, this is a space, right? And so, this is a space and this is a space. You see these little white chalk lines separating the spaces. And that's kind of how it is. It's much more closer to like a Conan experience where you have these, blocked spaces where sometimes it'll be like, here's a tile, but it's actually in 4 different spaces, and this space is shaped weird to where it's lining up to these 2 and this one. So it's actually adjacent to all 3 instead of just the one left and right of it, just because of how they're all drawn. You kind of get that interesting space there. And again, it makes it really simple there too. So yeah, like a 50+ hour campaign, and I kind of talked about how specific you can do it, which is kind of cool. You can see some of the interesting enemies that you'll be fighting, and obviously at least a boss here, which is kind of cool. Now, one thing I will say as well is they really plan on digging into this IP. They've created this whole world and this whole concept and kind of this detailed lore within it, so that they can add more bosses and more monsters and more legendary stories and more settings and world locations and stuff like that. Whether we're going to see a lot of that in the campaign, which I imagine we will, but also future campaigns as well. They really want to, this is not a one and done thing, I guess is what I'm saying. A lot of times these games are, right? And not all of them, but a lot of times it's like, here's the game, you're never going to hear from it again, we're never going to touch this IP again, we've created it, but it's done and that's it. This is definitely one where they want to kind of keep breathing life into, and kind of keep supporting, which is kind of nice to know. So if you're buying into this, you can obviously just have just what it is, but know that if you do enjoy it and like it, there will be future content as well. I'm assuming it as long as it does well, but I can't imagine this not doing well. It looks like a solid game. Again, I had a lot of fun. I will be having that video again. I got to edit it and just get some stuff ready for that, but it should be, ready for you guys to view definitely before the campaign's over. So during the campaign, you'll see that. Hopefully that helps some of you guys to actually kind of see it. It's not heavy on the gameplay. A lot of it's the interview and then talking through it and talking about kind of actions we're doing. But you do definitely see a few rounds where we play through and we're doing the movement and the attacks and the enemy AI. You get to see how that system works. Again, super streamlined and nice, where it makes sense how they're acting and kind of what they're doing. Oh, this is a ferocious enemy, so ferocious enemies act this way, and stuff like that. A lot of smart streamlining where it doesn't seem like it dumbed it down. It just is really smooth, which I really appreciate. So anyway, that's Bardsung. That's kind of my insider explanation on it a little bit. I hope you found that helpful. If you did and it looks interesting, again, there will be a link down below. If you didn't, let me know. If you did, let me know anyway. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I might be able to answer them. I'll certainly be looking at your comments and seeing what I can help with. So, anyway, that's it for me for Bardsung. I will be a backer of this. I'm definitely going to be clicking my own link. Actually, I won't click my own link, but I'll be going to the Kickstarter, and when I'm grabbing the link to the Kickstarter, I will be backing it as well. So I'm excited for it. Hopefully, this is kind of exciting for you. I'm glad to see SFG actually do like their own IP and really invest in a world that they can own wholesale and do whatever they want with. It means the sky's the limit for add-ons and stuff like that. They're not like limited to an IP, which is great to see. I'm really excited to see where they can take this. And hopefully it ends up well for them, because I want it to be a good game. So hopefully I get to play it in the future as well. All right, that's it for me. Guys, have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll talk to you guys again very, very soon. Again, December is going to be huge. I'm going to have upcoming 2021 Kickstarter. I'm going to be having top 10s. I'm going to be having a game award show where I do my game of the year. So if you want to know what my Kickstarter of the year was or my game of the year was, that will be coming up. Subscribe and hit that bell if you haven't yet for that. Seriously, December is always crazy on this channel. So hopefully a lot of good content coming up. Now, seriously, guys, take care.